Once again, we find ourselves in a very busy season on the farm. The fruit's coming off the trees, the vegetables are coming out of the garden, stuff is growing like crazy, and it's a good season to be in. I'm glad to be here. Every year at this time, we find ourselves working really hard and also anxiously waiting because there's a really big thing that happens every single year at this time, Lord willing. And that is waiting on our new calf to come so that we will be back in milk. For those of you not familiar with how having a dairy cow works, this is our cow Cecilia, and she's been with us now for 5 years, pregnant with her 4th calf. She's amazing, and we consider her a member of this family. So every year she's bred, and she carries that calf for 9 months before she gives birth. Every year after she gives birth, we milk her for 9 months, and then she gets 3 months off to just rest and recuperate. So Cece now is coming off of her break, hugely pregnant, ready to give birth to this calf, and ready to be back in milk. We're really excited about this. Sometimes homeschool on the farm looks like standing out in the pasture all day and staring at the cow's backside, just waiting for that one moment when it all happens. It's messy business, this. Cece is a Jersey cow, and she is a spectacular mother. This year, she's given us a little bull calf named George.
It's amazing to watch the accelerated rate of life with animals. You're often thinking about our kids and thinking about their future, thinking about them growing up. And with these animals, we get to see things sort of in an accelerated fashion where they learn to walk the first, few hours of their life, and they bond with their parents and they start running around, and it's all very, very quick. And it kind of gives you a snapshot a bit of life, kind of life in fast forward a little bit. And it's really, really fun to see how the kids engage with that and love it and grow and learn as they interact with it.
They do love George. Who couldn't love George? We milk share here on our farm, which means that the calf gets milk and we get milk. But right after a cow gives birth, much like a human, she has colostrum. And so the first week and a half or 2 weeks of George's life, he gets that colostrum exclusively. This is just time for him and his mama. It gives her body a little bit more of a chance to rest after giving birth. She gets lots of good grass, extra special treats from the garden. She gets to just bond with her calf, take care of him for a while. And then after that 2-week period is when we start to bring in the milk.
Milk season is upon us. It's the time of year I know you look forward to a lot.
Yes.
After being dried up for several months. And So our morning routines start over again. We'll wake up early in the morning and get out there while it's cool and the flies haven't come around quite yet. And it kind of gives us a chance to set the pace for the day in a new way.
Cece is such a giver. She gives us a calf every year that we will raise. She gives us milk every day. She gives the dog milk, the cat's milk, the kids' milk, the chicken's whey from our cheese making. She is a provider. And I mean, there's just no other way to feel other than just a deep gratitude for her. We feed our cow a dairy ration that comes from a local organic mill here. And it's full of probiotics and minerals and vitamins, and then broken up bits of pea and wheat. And she gets to munch on that with some molasses while we milk.
Cece's kind of the queen of the farm. If you're the mistress of the manor, then Cece's the queen of the farm.
Yes, she is.
And, she has to be treated like a queen. She needs to get good food and be taken care of and keep condition, all of those things, because she really, she provides us with quite a lot.
It still blows my mind that we can go out there and milk and 20 minutes later walk back to the house with 4 gallons of milk. It's such a gift to have every morning.
So every season of the farm has its own unique production that's going on, even in the dead of winter. Things are being produced in some way, maybe fermentations, those kinds of things. Well, this is sort of peak production for our dairy. And it means that not only do we incorporate our routine of milking in the morning, but we also have to start incorporating routines of processing this dairy into usable forms, because we can get, if we're at max production, we could probably get 3 gallons every milking. So that's about 6 gallons a day if we're doing 2 milkings a day. And so obviously we're not drinking that much milk. And so we have to find ways to use it so it can feed us and feed our animals. One of the big things that we have to do to figure out is how do we preserve it? How do we store it? And of course, the main way you do that is through making cheese and aging cheese.
This is when milk is at its best. It's warm outside. The cows are on green pasture, and that affects the milk. What the cows eat greatly affects the chemistry of the milk. And this type of milk, this pasture summer milk, it really is prime for cheese making. I've made cheese a lot in the past and always struggled with the aging process because it's so dry here. This year, I'm countering that by choosing to wax my cheeses instead of try any sort of natural rind. And I'm hoping that will be the ticket to some really good cheeses. So I've honed in on a few recipes that I'll tag below. And I'm really hopeful that this is going to be my breaking point as a milkmaid, as a cheesemaker. I'm determined.
There's a lot about farming in particular and homesteading that is very much based on trusting the process and then hoping that your work will pay off. But that's not always the case. And of course, that can come in many different forms. A crop can fail, a storm can come, animals can get sick. Well, it's the same in cheese making process because there's a lot of upfront work and you trust the process, but then when you wax it and you stick it in the cheese cave to age it, you just have to trust that
in 9 months, 9
months down the road, when you pull it out, the end product is going to be had been worth all the effort.
Yeah, and it is an act of faith.
Sometimes it doesn't turn out. And so you have to ask yourself, what about that made it worth it? And at that point, it's about learning from your mistakes And even if you can't end up eating the cheese that you
Yeah.
spent so much, you have to have the mindset that's able to say, okay, maybe in some senses a failure, but it's also an opportunity to learn
It is.
and to try again next time.
It is. And I love the process of cheese making. I love having my hands in the curd. I love the smell of the warm milk. I love the fact that it takes me 24 hours to put up a 2-pound block of cheddar. You're being devoted to the process and really loving the different pieces of the process.
It requires all the fundamentals of life. It requires work and discipline and knowledge and application. All the things that we kind of think of, the higher order things of life, but applied to a very down and dirty product, like cheese. And cheese really is one of those things where the whole is much more than the sum of all of its parts. And there is that bit of magic that has to happen to bring it all together and to glue everything together into something that's usable and good. And that part of things is, there's a bit of magic there, the X factor.
I'm all about the milk magic.
We've tried in the past different forms of pressing our cheese, and it's never quite turned out. Sometimes too much pressure, sometimes not enough. So we decided this year we're going to give ourselves a leg up and actually
Just buy the proper equipment
and form, and see if that will help in the final product for us and to be more successful.
It's amazing how many times I have failed at cheese making. I'm still so hopeful. I'm still so hopeful because I think about the decade I spent making bad sourdough bread. And then there was that moment where things clicked and things changed. And all of a sudden, I'm now able to make a beautiful loaf of sourdough bread. But had I given up on year 9, that would have been a really sad way to live the rest of my life. So I'm still holding out hope. This is going to be the cheese year. I have a good feeling about it. Another major product, obviously, that comes from our dairy is butter. Now, when I think about a MILKMAID, this is what comes to mind. Washing and rinsing and culturing your butter. And look at this Jersey butter. I mean, if you don't geek out about this, I don't know. I think this is about as good as it gets. So this is a cream that has been cultured overnight at room temperature. It's then chilled and then whipped into butter before it's washed and rinsed in water to get the rest of the buttermilk away, salted, and then stored. Sometimes patting the butter down on a towel will help to wick away some of that extra water from washing it. But you do really want to wash it well because the buttermilk will sour the butter if you don't get it all rinsed off. Salt really helps with that too. Most of the butter that we make this time of year, when the cream is so good from all the grass, will get wrapped up and stored in the freezer for the winter. But there's also a place for pretty butter. This is butter that we simply press into molds, pop into the refrigerator, and then pop out again so that when you serve it at the table, it looks good. Here's a harsh reality about being a milkmaid. There's a lot of dishes involved. All this cheese making and butter making and culturing, the buckets and the cheesecloth. Man, it's a lot of dishes, isn't it?
So in addition to the butter that we get to make, we also are making yogurt. And that's another great way to kind of preserve our milk and put it in a form that's usable for us. Of course, it requires a little bit of processing, but not nearly as much as cheese or maybe even butter. But it gives us a great product that our kids love and that, of course, we use often.
This is where I get really excited about milk, because we're taking the same product, just milk, and we're making all this different food stuff from it just by utilizing different temperatures, different cultures, different bacterias. I mean, that is the magic of milk. So this yogurt has just been heated a little bit, cooled down to about 110 degrees before I put in a yogurt culture, which is just a residual yogurt from my last batch, and then keep it warm for about 24 hours. And that's it. If you like a thick yogurt, you can strain it. I do. I like a really thick yogurt. So after it's cultured, I just pour it into some cheesecloth, drain off some of the whey to feed to the chickens, and then am able to store the yogurt right after that. Just from a culture. One of the best parts about this whole milk process is that all of this just came from the pasture. It came from our friend, Cece, somebody that we get to interact with and spend time with and have a relationship with. This is all because of her. And she's the reason we can sit down at the table with a bowl of yogurt for breakfast. What a cool relationship.
The farm gives us so much, and we put a lot of work into it, but it really does give and give. Sometimes it even gives in very surprising and unexpected ways.
If you've been a farmer, you know how intimate your relationship with your animals is. So when I heard a bellow from the barnyard coming from our heifer, Lucy, I knew it wasn't her normal cry. And there was good reason for that.
We were not expecting to have 2 calves this season. But as things go, we ended up with little Margaret.
She's a cute one.
We were concerned that our heifer calf was too small, and we weren't thinking that she had been bred, but unbeknownst to us, she did get bred when our milk cow and her were in pasture with the bull last season. But she was able to deliver Margaret. We helped her a little bit. She may not have needed our help, but we kind of panicked and helped her out. And Margaret came out and was healthy, and Lucy was healthy as well. And she's been a great mama, and we're very grateful for that.
And come on, cow nose, look at her.